All right. Is there anyone that can hear me through the stream? Do you have? Huh. Okay. Can I get confirmation from any of you that the stream is working? Can you guys hear me? All right. So give me just a quick moment to spread this around a little bit. Give me a moment. All right. So, let me get back to the text chat. All right, great. Can everyone else hear me in the stream? Okay. Annie, are you able to unmute briefly and speak and see if anyone can hear you in the stream? Okay. We'll figure it out later if there's something wrong. All right. So, how many of you that are here right now have attempted to do some hypnosis of your own before? Feel free to respond in lesson discussion. That should be under the events category. That is where we are. All right. Just so you guys know, that is where I will be watching for things that you guys say and things that you guys do. If there is a bit of a pause, that is because I am actually talking in the stream, which is likely 3 or 4 seconds behind what I'm actually the present. So I might say something, you guys don't hear it for 3 seconds, and then you respond. So that's probably what's going on there. All right, so we're gonna start off with a quick story here to kind of break the ice a little bit. Cup, what's going on?
You're not talking. God damn it. Ah. You're talking specifically just for the stream. So for Discord. Sad.
Right. Anyway. So, how many of you have had a problem with a difficult subject or someone that was otherwise very difficult to get under or get any sort of effects to stick to? How many of you have had that experience? And Pan, yes, I am sending the audio through the stream. Pan, you alright? Anyway, okay, so our lesson today is going to be on how to boost your rapport with your subject. That way you get better effects. That way you get them into better trances. And some of those difficult subjects that just can't trance to save their life, you should be able to help yourself get some of them under too. Alright. Cup, what's going on? Okay. Let me know whenever you're alright. Pan, are you alright? I guess we're just waiting for the people who are recording to be able to certify that they are in fact recording. All right, Pan, are you doing all right? Hello, Ink. All right. So, going forward, so our objective here is to build your rapport with your subject. If anyone isn't familiar with what that means, that's basically their confidence in you as a hypnotist. Pan, where did you say that? Well, just so you know, I don't have that open. I'll open that up. Give me a moment. Okay. Now I have the chat open. Okay, now I can see what you're saying if you say something in chat. Alright. So, your rapport with your subject is basically their confidence in you as a hypnotist, and therefore the likelihood of you being effective in putting them under and getting some effects on them. Oh, alright. Pan wants me to give him a minute. Pan wanted me to give him a minute, so I'm waiting for some sort of confirmation that we're all good on that. But for now, just in case anyone doesn't have the doesn't have it open, here you go. Alright, Pan, you good? Alright, there's someone who's messaging me a little confused. I'm very sorry about the starting and stopping here. I keep starting and people are getting confused. So I'm dealing with that before I get a half an hour in and someone has missed the entire thing. Anyway, there we go. Okay, so once again, the lesson today is on rapport building so that you can get better effects and deeper trances from your subjects that you are putting under. But in order to kind of break the ice on this, we're going to start with a story. All right? So, when I was back in New York, when I was actually still in university, in order to be able to pay some of my personal expenses other than my tuition, I decided to take a job at Geek Squad. I was doing the actual title was counterintelligence agent. They had really silly. I fixed computers is basically what it was. So this didn't go so well, mostly because of the fact that they rarely let us actually work on computers and we were glorified salespeople. But beyond that, let's talk about my coworkers. Alright? So, first we had Edgar, who was my boss. We all worked under Edgar. He was in control of the Geek Squad. They called them precincts when we were there. We had Amanda, who was at the counter, taking in customers, trying to talk to... Theoretically taking in customers, realistically directing the customers to us so that we could sell them a new computer. It wasn't great. Repair was me, someone named Teddy, and someone named Saeed. So, fucking Saeed. That's just the moral of the story here. So, let's talk a little about Saeed. This is Saeed. Yes, I got permission to use this picture. Not only that, he's watching. Fuck you, Saeed. So let's go over some of why fuck you, Saeed. So, he was one of those people that somehow, you could never explain it. He could get away with anything. You would do things that would get you fired out of a cannon out the window of any other place, and no one cared. So let's go over some actual things that I overheard this man say on the phone when he would pick up the phone and talk to customers. Hello, Squatty Geeks, how may I tickle your pickle? This is one of the ways that he answered the phone numerous times. Not even once. He did this a lot. I'm sorry, sir. We don't work on Apple. This is a computer repair staff. We don't fix toasters. Try Sears. He said this while the Apple representative was standing behind him. He got away with it. Your computer got slow so you wouldn't feel bad about your speech impediment. It's a feature. This one got a call to corporate, who kicked it down to the store. All he got for this was a mention at the staff monthly meeting about how we should be nice to our customers, and then laughter about the fact that this happened. That's not a mouse, that's a suppository. This got shouted across the store. Again, he completely got away with it. So, after each monthly meeting for the whole store, we would break out into our specific departments, where we would go, essentially go meet with Edgar, and Edgar would yell at us about paperwork and turnaround time, and we would yell back at Edgar about the fact that he won't let us fix any computers, and that being the problem with the turnaround time. So, one of these meetings, Edgar gets it in his head that his idea of taking input from his team is to ask us all how we like working there. We all give honest feedback. Now, I don't know if any of you speak German, but this is what Saeed had to say. This is my Scheisseheim. It means family home. You are family to me. If any of you speak German, please do not tell anyone what's wrong with this yet. So, we find out after a lot of tossing this around, because we just took it at face value what he said, that the CEO of the company, one Brian Dunn, was going to come. So, the CEO decides he's going to go on a tour of stores, right? And while he was there, he decided to ask the same question Edgar had. Ask us what we thought of working there and what we thought of his company. Now, we didn't know that he actually knew the language, and we didn't know that there was anything wrong with what Saeed had told us, because we just took it at face value. So, guess what we all did? Yeah. Except Saeed. He didn't say it. So, that day I lost my job, as well as the entire rest of Geek Squad except Saeed. He became computer sales manager. So, what happened here? This is what happened. That's what it means. Now, it's pretty clear that something went wrong here. I took something at face value, as well as the entire rest of the team. Why? Let's talk about why and how we can use that to improve our chances, believe it or not. And I'm not talking about using German to call someone a shithouse. Now, let's talk a little bit about biases. So there are certain concepts in psychology that allow you to kind of, I don't want to say influence, but direct how someone's thought process is going to go, such that you can try to cheat a little bit. So authority bias is one of these biases where it will, if it sounds like you know what you're talking about, and or you have, it's the same reason that actors put on a lab coat so that you think they're a doctor when they're in a pill commercial or something. They're trying to use authority bias to make you just take their claims and accept them at face value with no evidence whatsoever. So, Saeed, what he did was he was an absolute master at speaking with confidence things that were absolutely insane, like claims that a computer slows down so you don't feel bad about your speech impediment. And by speaking firmly and with authority and with a great deal of confidence, he would get essentially no resistance. No one cared. Every one of those things that he did, he never once got punished for. Anytime it was even clear that he had done wrong, the response was essentially, that's just Saeed. He was able to ask a customer how he could tickle their pickle routinely over the phone and never once get written up. It blew everyone's mind. And you too can learn the power of projecting such confidence. So, what is our goal as a hypnotist? Our goal as a hypnotist is to get effects from someone and or give someone an experience by putting them in a state of trance so that they can then, through that state of trance, experience these things and take on these effects in a different way than consciously attempting to follow them. So, let's briefly go over how you do that. So, you can't force a trance on anyone. There's no such thing as Mentok the Mind Taker waving a pocket watch in front of your face, you know, and swirl. That's not how this works, as you all already know by now. It's a state of mind that the mind chooses to enter. Now, you can, however, remove the perception of that choice and cause the subject to believe they have lost it. This isn't to say that you should abuse people. This is to say that what you can... Alright, cut. This is to say that what you can do is you can give someone who is a willing participant but is swearing up and down that hypnosis doesn't work, I can't be hypnotized, blah, 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 the illusion that you know what you're talking about and that you know they're heading under. So, this can be used for good, like bringing a difficult subject under more reliably, or for evil, abusing a subject and doing nasty things. We are going to be discussing the possibilities of the former, not the latter. What I want you to take away from this is how you can take a difficult subject, someone who doesn't trance easily, someone who overanalyzes things, and get them to just shut up and take it, basically, as long as they're willing. Now, how do we embrace this? I'm going to display a phrase here. I'm going to display a sentence that it's very likely that you all are going to object very violently to. Alright? I'm going to make a claim that you know to be false. Hypnosis isn't real, and we're all just role players. Hypnosis isn't real, and we're all just role players. You know that feeling you're getting right now where you want to respond? You're probably already working it out in your head. How you're going to come back and say, oh, well, what are you doing? Why do you leave this community? Blah, 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 blah. I've been hip. You know that feeling you've got right now? That feeling you've got right now is how we're going to take advantage of this. So think back to an argument you've had. Some instance where someone has been blatantly wrong. Someone said something as wrong as the prior statement, and you knew for a fact that they were wrong. And when you explained it to them, you may not have been waving your finger at them, but they could hear your finger waving at them from the other side of the conversation. Think back to an argument you've had like that. And I want you to think about how you felt. What kind of mental space you were in as you were putting your words together, arguing back against it. That force you put in your words, that I'm trying to figure out how to even how to phrase it. That form that you had behind the words, that manner of speaking, I want you to think back to that, and I want you to embrace that. I'm gonna give you a moment to think about that, and then we're gonna play Truths and a Lie. So I'm going to read you 3 claims, and you're going to figure out which of these are true and which of these are a fabrication. Alright? I had to cut ties with my aunt because she wouldn't stop being generally creepy and begging me to breed her. I drive a Prius because it was easy to just hack the damn thing into a poor woman's Tesla by just adding a battery and a wall charger. My entire family got into a fistfight brawl with a large number of angry children in Zimbabwe. Now, you all can unmute yourselves if you want and discuss amongst yourselves based on trying to read my language which of these are true and which of these are lies. Go on.
Okay, the first claim is ridiculous.
Second one's also ridiculous. Third one... probably.
I'm upset I can't really constantly switch back and forth because I'm on phone.
Well, I'll repeat them then for anyone.
Oh, great. Which ones were... Okay, I'm turning off Discord. Discord. You're out of here. Not gonna record it anymore. Output. Oh, shoot. Don't do it twice. No. There. Sorry.
Give me a moment, actually. Alright, so I'm going to read off those claims again for anyone that's having a little bit of trouble. I had to cut ties with my aunt because she wouldn't stop being generally creepy and begging me to breed her. I drive a Prius because it was easy to just hack the damn thing into a poor woman's Tesla by just adding battery and a wall charger. My entire family got into a fistfight brawl with a large number of angry children in Zimbabwe. Which of these are true and which of these are a lie? Since audio is evidently not working, go ahead and use lesson discussion chat. Alright, I'm looking at Discord and I see several people are typing. I'm actually kind of surprised at you guys. Alright, go on. Once I start seeing points repeated and or the discussion died down, I'll probably move on to the next slide and do the reveal. Hannah, just so you know, a Prius is a hybrid. Alright, 2 people are typing right now. Alright, so the discussion seems to have pretty much died down with a surprising number of people choosing the option that they are all lies. And those people will be happy to see this slide, that the lie was the idea that truths are present. So a few of you actually got it. Congratulations on that. Maybe it was kind of obvious, given the fact that, you know, I was kind of setting up for that, kind of blatantly. But anyway, so what's going on? Why was I able to convince anyone of any of those? Well, the brain is excellent at learning, and in life, people making claims about things they believe, that's not uncommon at all. That's not something that is rare to encounter. It's almost all you encounter all day. People making claims, telling you things, etc. So, your brain, over time, picks up on what people sound like, what people act like, how people phrase things when they are spouting a load of shit versus when they at least believe they know what they're talking about and or have something to base their claim on. What is that, Annie? Oh dear, Annie. Yeah, go ahead and unmute the stream, please. Now, anyway, whether we know it or not, we pick up on the difference between bullshit and confidence. So, when someone's talking to you, there is an sometimes perceptible view of how well the person believes what they're talking about. There's some instances where this is extreme, such that you know the person is just spouting shit and they have no idea what they're talking about, or they're lying through their teeth. You can sometimes just pick it up. So, we can use this to learn to project confidence where not otherwise warranted. So if you're having trouble with a subject, or you have a subject that's having some trouble getting under, you can start learning how to embrace that mode of speaking and that mode of behavior, that you know what you're talking about, and therefore your statements that they're going deeper are accurate. Now, what are the signs of BS? Hesitation, hedging, self-validation, and inflexibility. So, what does that mean? So, hesitation. Hesitation is when, you know, just like I'm doing right now, I'm not proceeding on to the next thing. So, let's say that I were giving one of you a session. Let's say that I was trying to put one of you under. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with this, and I haven't really planned it out. I'm sure we've all been there. So what I do is I start introducing long pauses. I start just going silent and waiting while I internally figure out where I'm going next. Hedging. So hedging is when you start saying, well, this may or may not be true, and if you're under, this happens, but, you know, if you're not under, this... Hedging is what happens when you lack conviction on what you are doing and have done, and it ends up showing in the fact that your speech reflects essentially all possible outcomes without any confidence that you have arrived at the one you were looking for. Self-validation. Let's say that in the entirety of this lesson, I were to stop in the middle of things and ask you if you believed it. Ask you what you think of it. Which, that doesn't mean all audience engagement is bad. What that means is, Hey, are you under? You still under? You still good? You under? That kind of thing is what starts shaking a subject's confidence in you and starts destroying that rapport. Now, inflexibility. Let's say that I have a plan for how I want to go forward with the session. So what ends up happening, I am just reading what Hannah said. Hannah, I'm going to circle back to that. There is such a thing as deliberate pausing. For example, when you're counting someone down deeper. I'm going to circle back to that later and kind of clarify that on the hesitation. And yeah, are you still under is... I was trying to figure out how to put it that didn't sound inflammatory. Peppermint Swirl asks, can part of this help in self-hypnosis with files as well? That's really up to the creation of the file. Now, inflexibility, what that means is, let's say you have a plan for how the session is going to go, and your subject essentially ends up being along for the ride. You have a direction that you're going with it, which is fine, but when the subject is not quite there, you just charge on ahead in total disregard of their state. Essentially just saying that 2 + 2 is 5 when the subject currently believes it's 4, and you just charge ahead without addressing that. That's one of the things that will shake your subject's rapport with you, because if you have them under enough, you probably could convince them 2 + 2 is 5, but if you had them under to begin with, you probably already have enough rapport that you're pretty much good. What we're trying to address here is failing to get people under to begin with, or having trouble getting them to accept things. Now, let me take a look at what this is. Okay. Now, let's look at some signs of confidence, alright? The first one we're going to talk about signs of confidence is your flow. So, going back to what had been asked about earlier, your pausing. Alon, Cup asked, how are you feeling? I'm going to get back into that. That's why I didn't address that. I have that later on. Now, your flow. Remember earlier when we were talking about pauses and when they are acceptable and when they are not acceptable. So if you're going to have a pause, you should probably either have an announcement of some kind that you're planning on pausing for a specified purpose, or do so in a predictable way. For example, waiting for a subject to do something that you've instructed, like pauses for the subject to consider and internalize something you said. When you're counting them down, they should be consistent and clearly part of the plan. That is all good. Beyond that, flow must be one thing into the next. Do not jar your subject around in ways that reflect a lack of planning on your part. Even if there is a lack of planning, or you are in unexpected territory that, for example, a subject interpreted something in a way that you did not expect, and you have to take a kind of a detour in order to address that. You are the authority, and breaking this illusion runs the potential of breaking the rapport and troubling the session. Now, repetition in the context of hypnosis is good and even expected. So if you're having trouble finishing a sentence, don't inject pauses and stall words. I've actually, knowing that this slide was coming, been kicking myself a few times for using ums a few times. Try to finish the sentence and repeat it, using the time to figure out a way to complete it this time. So if I'm having trouble phrasing something, I just restart it and continue the sentence anew. And in doing so, potentially even enhance the effect of whatever I was trying to say. Dragon, are you alright? I noticed you put some ellipses in lesson discussion. Is everyone just going to start Okay, we're all spamming stalwarts. Okay. Oh my god. You people are great. Anyway, anyway. The next sign of confidence. Calm. Remember, your subject, while they are under, is going to be a mirror of what you are projecting onto them. So if you are calm, they too will mirror your calm. If you start to believe that you don't know what's going on, and you start to panic, they will pick up on that. And they will start picking up on that, and they will start taking that in and reflecting it. So, learn to control your breathing. Because regardless of what you're saying, the act of speaking is exhaling. All you're doing is you're exhaling while you're vibrating the air. So if you're nervous, your breathing will reflect that, and that will therefore reflect in your speech. So what you need to do is you need to learn to control your breathing regardless of your internal state. That way you can... I'm sorry, I had to pause there. I just saw Peppermint say double chalupa breathing, and that kind of tripped me up a bit because I did not... Of all the things I expected to see, I did not expect to see double chalupa breathing. Anyway, control your breathing, control your calm. Your subject will reflect both these forms of control. Now, next sign of confidence. Surety. So, when you're not sure what's going on, and you're not... Well, I don't want to say when you're not sure what's going on. When you have, for example, tried to place a suggestion on someone, notice there's an asterisk here. I'm probably going to get people screaming safety things at me. I'm going to come back to this. Don't worry. Don't try to sit there and ask whether it worked. For the same reason you don't want to sit there spamming your session with, are you under? You still in trance? You still good? Hey, are you under? Are you in trance? For the same reason you don't want to do that, you don't want to follow every single suggestion with, did it work? Did it work? Yeah, exactly. If it worked is not a phrase that exists. Pen, you're amazing. So, let's say that you're trying to get someone under, right? Well, let's say that we're talking about one of those difficult subjects that were the kind of inspiration for this. Alright? So, it worked. Your attitude is that it worked. You continue under the attitude that it worked. And if you later find that it didn't work, it will work in the future next time when you put them back under. You always insist that it either worked, is working, or will work in the future, because that is how you will build your rapport. Now, next sign is exploration. Remember, you are not necessarily in this trance, but sharing in the experience of it with your subject. You are not moving around your subject, you are not above your subject, you are right there with your subject, their guide through this journey that you have decided to take them by the hand and lead them down. So, that asterisk from earlier, we're going to return to that. Pay attention to your subject. Let's say that you give someone a suggestion of some kind, and their breathing has started to reflect that they're under distress, that they might be in pain, that they might be in some form of horror at what's going on. When you encounter something that isn't what you expected or isn't what you wanted, ask within the context of pointing out your observation. So when you hear that distressed breathing, tell the subject, I hear that your breathing sounds like you might be having some trouble. Tell me about that. That's the angle you want to take when checking in on your subject and making sure that they're okay. This will help build rapport because, one, you are showing that you care about the subject, which obviously you should be doing to begin with. You are exploring something you're not sure about, that is the subject's current state, without projecting yourself as unsure of yourself. You are noticing something that you can point out about them, presenting that, and requesting an explanation of it from them. Because it's unreasonable to expect you to just be all-knowing, and it's not going to hurt your rapport to point out, hey, I noticed this, go on with this. Now, so, with all that in mind, let's circle back to that confidence in speaking beyond what you can really do. Now, we're going to talk about projection of power and how to whoosh people on into deeper trances using your confidence. All right. Now, describing this state of mind that you can put yourself in is really difficult. There are a lot of variables here. There are lots of little verbal micro expressions, lots of various other things that feed in. And if I were to try to describe it, and if you were to try to act based on this description, it would just come off creepy. Like, have you ever seen a fedora enthusiast who try to flirt with someone based on an online tutorial? You're going to sound like that, and it's going to unnerve your subject a lot more than trying to just naturally let it flow. So, you remember earlier when I said to look back at your at that argument you had where you knew what was going on. Take that. Look back at those instances in your life as they happen in the future, and you feel that state of mind you're in when you're presenting what you know to be true, and seize on it. Remember it. Train yourself to go back to it. Train yourself to use that same voice that you had when you were in that discussion. Alright, so we're going to practice real fast. We're going to have a QA session where you guys aren't allowed to ask any questions because you already know what I'm talking about because you're confident. I'm just kidding. Let's talk about some abusive hypnotists. Circle back to the beginning. Now, speaking firmly and with confidence is one of the reasons that abusive hypnotists are so successful. So understanding what's going on here and understanding the prior can be critical to understanding how to take the victim of an abusive hypnotist and see if you can help them out a little bit. See if you can tug them away and back in a healthy direction. So, abusive hypnotists are really just abusive people that happen to know hypnosis. So, abusive people, they are that way because they honestly believe that other people have value only in their utility and that they have a right to that utility. That they are justified somehow in simply taking it. So, with that confidence, they approach their victim, get in a little bit, get their foot in the door, and then start projecting that belief onto that victim. And that's what you're going to need to fight against, because you've had an abuser essentially bulldoze this person's self-worth, bulldoze and wrecking ball this person's fundamental idea of their role within society, and you need to fight that. But what you shouldn't do is try to fight fire with fire. That does not mean use these techniques in order to go in and just install your own abuse, essentially, because these people are going to be very vulnerable. What you want to do is you want to take your knowledge of how this works and frame your argument for why this person should get away from an abuser within the context of knowing what's going on. The quote that I put here on the slide is, yes, this person made you believe you owe them this. That's the kind of attitude we're talking about here. So you start shaking the rapport with the abuser, you start breaking them out of the illusion, and a lot of the effects that they're under will start crumbling. Now, Q&A for real this time. If anyone has any questions, feel free to say it in lesson discussion. or in the YouTube chat, because I can see both, and it won't result in horrifying echo for anyone unmuting themselves. Pan, I'm not having people unmute the Discord because we tried that and it went very badly. We could do what we did for Sensory Motor, where you just take screenshots of what people said. Although, with the lesson now about wrapped up, I decided to put this comic again at the end of it, so you guys could maybe, reflect back on that and see how kind of amusingly accurate this comic actually is. Drake, what do you mean by new permissive test? Can you maybe expand on what you mean there a little bit? Well, obviously, you want to have a good amount of consent. So, to restate, because I didn't read what Drake was saying. Drake is essentially saying that I saw that pen. Drake is essentially saying that they're new and that they ask the subject for their compliance. This is something that you should always be doing. You need consent within your play, within your hypnosis, within anything else. We don't want to be one of the people that I was talking about on the prior slide. So, what I'm talking about here is a method for improving your performance with people that you're having some difficulty with on a functional level, not on a this person does not want to go under for me level. So this is all assuming that you have already done your consent negotiation, etc. Drake is following up and saying that this is during trance. Hey, if that works for you, great. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, Pan is saying, what if you're always 100% of the time an unsure person and your subject would definitely notice if you sound at all confident? That's a little difficult because a lot of hypnosis depends on the subject letting you in, which as a result of that kind of requires the subject essentially believing you with the things that you're saying. Well, Pan, you wouldn't be the first person to have a different voice and a different approach used when attempting to perform for someone. So I wouldn't say that's quite jarring. You should probably experiment with that and see how that works out. Annie is asking about giving pre-talks. I wouldn't say that's quite within scope here, but essentially a pre-talk is very similar to the consent negotiation you would have in other forms of play. So basically what you're doing is you're having a conversation with what isn't your subject yet, but will potentially be afterwards, on what their limits are, what they want, what they are giving you permission for, etc. Within the context of a file, what you're doing is you're describing what it does, who should and shouldn't use it, what state you should be in while using it, etc. Essentially doing your best to make sure that the subject going forward is doing so under solidly informed state, such that they know what they're getting into should they continue playing. And one-on-one, this is a lot more of a two-sided conversation. Are people hearing a game somewhere? Let me check something. That fix it? Alright. I had no idea that was going. My apologies. Now, anyway. So, does anyone else have any questions before I wrap it up? Because we have people who were assisting with recording who will be departing shortly. Let me see if I can find the one Hannah said. Hannah says, so I don't have trouble with conviction and projecting confidence in the online setting where I know the person I'm with is interested in hypnosis. What about IRL? What do you do to project confidence and go hypnotize people? I'm honestly not entirely sure what this is asking. Could you expand on that a little bit? And while I'm waiting to see that expanded on, Dragon, Dragon is asking when the next lesson is. That is to be determined, because we have a few to make up, and I also need to focus on getting the files that we have recorded. We're actually about to see if we can try to release a wave here, but we have a few recorded. It's just a matter of getting them edited so that they're high quality, so that we can get those out to you guys. So after getting this lesson done, I need to kind of pivot to that and see what I can do about making that happen. Actually, one of the ones that we have going, while I'm waiting for that to be clarified, is an anxiety reduction file. I wrote that one. Basically, what it attempts to do is take someone who has trouble arriving at decisions and just kind of sits there paralyzed, and help them out with that a little bit, so that they can essentially trust their brain's ability to figure out what's going on and reach the best available solution, even if it's not the best possible solution. G-Claw Gaming is asking if I had a good day. I've had a good day so far. I'd say that's more of a personal thing. Hannah said, sure. I've had a lot of experience doing hypnosis with people online, but I'm still too afraid to go do it with my friends in real life. If I knew better how to build rapport and introduce them to hypnosis so they would be excited about it, maybe I would be more willing to go out and do it. Do you have any advice for rapport building with people you already know, but who don't know you do hypnosis? I have a little pause before going into this because any advice I could possibly give on that front is going to sound a lot like manipulation, which, again, is not within the scope here. I would advise you to know your friends very well. Cup, did you ask something? Where did you ask something? Oh my gosh, I don't know how I missed that. Okay, so Cup is saying, do you understand? A good statement. That actually is fine. That is not self-reassurance. That is ensuring that your subject has properly processed something. So that is totally fine. Crystal Animosity says, will we ever have a lesson for giving a real-life session? Can you expand on what you mean on that? This will probably be the last thing that I answer, because we're running on the time limit for the people helping us out. Crystal Animosity says, from what I hear, a real-life session is different than online. It is. There isn't one planned right now, but I'm not going to rule it out. However, if I do end up doing that, that's going to require a little more planning, a little more lead up, a little more. I don't want to say research, but more opinions on it, some more input on it. I will definitely take it as a suggestion, though. It is something that I would like to do. I just don't have a date set for it. Alright, so it is now 7:02 p.m. My time, 8:02 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to go ahead and kill this stream now. And you guys can continue talking in lesson discussion if you want. Thank you so much for coming.